heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the roar of the engines as I stood at the edge of the open door, the wind tearing at my jumpsuit. 12,500 feet below, the world was a swirling canvas of white, a cruel, unforgiving landscape of snow and ice. My breath hitched in my throat, not from the biting cold that clawed at my exposed skin, but from the terrifying knowledge of what I was about to do. They told me it was a suicide mission, a fool's errand, but I knew deep in my gut that I had no other choice. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to pull back, to stay safe within the relative security of the plane, but the faces of my comrades, the desperate plea in their eyes, flashed before me. Was I wrong to leap into that unforgiving abyss, to willingly plunge myself into a situation where survival was a statistical anomaly? Tell me, honestly, would you have done the same? It all began, as most stories do, with a whisper of a dream and the harsh reality of war. I was just a kid, really, fresh out of basic training, but with a fire in my belly that burned brighter than any fear. My name is Sergeant Shelby Bixler, and I always believed that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. I joined the airborne early, drawn by the allure of the sky, the freedom, and the unparalleled challenge. I wanted to be part of something bigger than myself, to contribute to a cause that truly mattered. My training was brutal, relentless, pushing my body and mind to their absolute limits. I learned to jump from planes, to navigate by the stars, to survive in hostile environments with nothing but my wits and a combat knife. I forged bonds with my fellow paratroopers that were stronger than blood, a brotherhood built on shared hardship and unwavering trust. We were a diverse bunch, tough, witty, and fiercely loyal. There was Mac, a quiet giant with a heart of gold, always the first to offer a helping hand. Spinner, our resident comedian whose jokes could lighten the darkest mood. And Doc, our medic who had a knack for patching up wounds and spirits alike. We were a unit, a family, and we believed we were invincible. Our deployment to the European theater was a jolt into the grim reality of war. The camaraderie we shared was our shield against the horrors we witnessed daily. The air was thick with the smell of smoke and fear. The constant thrum of distant artillery, a persistent reminder of the fragility of life. Our mission was reconnaissance and special operations, often behind enemy lines, gathering intelligence, disrupting supply lines, and generally making life difficult for the enemy. It was dangerous work, but we were good at it, and we prided ourselves on our efficiency and our ability to adapt to any situation. I remember one mission, deep in the Ardennes, a harsh winter biting at our exposed skin. We were tasked with observing a major enemy movement, holed up in a tiny abandoned cabin, the snow falling relentlessly outside. The cold was a constant companion, seeping into our bones, and the silence, broken only by the howl of the wind, was almost as unnerving as the sound of battle. We spent 3 days there watching, waiting, reporting. We were discovered on the 4th day, a patrol stumbling upon our tracks in the fresh snow. The firefight that ensued was chaotic, a blur of gunfire and shouting. Mac took a bullet in his arm, and Doc, despite the hail of fire, calmly applied a field dressing, his hands steady, his face grim. We fought our way out, retreating through the dense forest, the enemy hot on our heels. It was a close call, a stark reminder of the ever-present danger, but we made it back, battered but not broken. Then came the call, a mission shrouded in secrecy, whispered about in hushed tones. It was a critical intelligence-gathering operation, deep in enemy territory, high in the treacherous Alps. A downed reconnaissance plane, its crew captured, but with vital information still on board. Our objective: retrieve the intelligence if possible, or at least deny it to the enemy. The odds were stacked against us. The weather forecasts were grim, predicting a massive blizzard, and the terrain was unforgiving, a labyrinth of snow-covered peaks and hidden crevasses. Our jump was scheduled for pre-dawn under the cover of darkness, but as we approached the drop zone, the blizzard hit with a vengeance. The plane was buffeted by violent winds, tossed around like a toy. Visibility dropped to near zero, the ground a swirling vortex of white. The pilot, his voice strained over the intercom, informed us that dropping us in such conditions was suicidal. He advised a return to base. But our commanding officer, a grizzled veteran with a steely gaze, knew the urgency of the mission. He looked at us, his eyes conveying the gravity of the situation. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice calm amidst the chaos, "this is a volunteer mission. If you wish to return, no one will fault you, but the information on that plane could turn the tide of this war." The silence that followed was deafening, punctuated only by the roaring engines and the howling wind. One by one we looked at each other, a silent understanding passing between us. We were soldiers and we had a job to do. No one backed down. The CO nodded, a flicker of pride in his eyes. Very well. Sergeant Bixler, you will lead the jump. My heart leaped into my throat. Me leading the jump into this swirling hell? I was experienced, yes, but this was a different beast altogether. My mind raced, calculating the risks, the almost insurmountable challenges. The plane continued to buck and sway. A metal bird fighting a losing battle against the elements. The jump light glowed red, then amber. Then with a lurch that sent my stomach into my boots, green. This was it. There was no turning back. The first few jumpers vanished into the white abyss, swallowed by the storm. Then it was my turn. I took a deep breath, the icy air burning my lungs, and launched myself into the maelstrom. The initial freefall was terrifying, disorienting. I tumbled, spun, the wind of physical force battering my body. The ground, when I could glimpse it through the swirling snow, seemed to rush up at me with alarming speed. I wrestled with my chute, fighting the powerful gusts, trying to regain control. My landing was anything but graceful. A hard impact that sent a jolt of pain up my spine. I was disoriented, half buried in a snowdrift, but alive. I quickly gathered my gear, checking for injuries, my heart still thumping against my ribs. The others began to land. Some more roughly than others, their muffled shouts and curses carried by the wind. We quickly formed up, a small, determined unit against the vast, unforgiving landscape. Our radios were barely functional, crackling with static, making communication a nightmare. The blizzard intensified, reducing visibility to mere feet. It was a whiteout, a world of nothing but swirling snow and the bitter cold. Our first priority was to locate the downed plane. We navigated by compass, inching our way forward, each step a struggle against the deep snow and the biting wind. The cold was relentless, seeping through our layers of clothing, numbing our fingers and toes. We rationed our supplies, knowing that every calorie, every drop of water was precious. Hours blurred into days, a monotonous grind of walking, searching, shivering. Morale began to dip, the sheer exhaustion and the crushing hopelessness of the situation taking their toll. Doc, usually so stoic, started to show signs of frostbite on his hands. Spinner's jokes grew fewer and farther between. Mac, always the strongest, pushed us forward, his unwavering determination a beacon in the storm. I felt the immense weight of responsibility on my shoulders. I was their leader, and I had to get them through this. I had to find that plane. One morning, after what felt like an eternity, Mac spotted something through a brief clearing in the blizzard. A glint of metal, half buried in a snowdrift. The downed plane. A surge of relief mixed with a renewed sense of urgency coursed through me. We quickened our pace, struggling through the deep snow until we reached the wreckage. It was a grim sight. The plane torn apart, mangled and twisted, a testament to the force of its impact. We found the bodies of the crew frozen solid, a stark reminder of the dangers we faced. Our priority was the intelligence. We scoured the wreckage, searching for the black box, for any documents, any sign of the vital information. It took hours, painstakingly sifting through the debris, our hands numb with cold. Finally, I found it, a small metal case hidden beneath a twisted piece of fuselage. Inside, a sealed pouch clearly marked. The intelligence was secure, but our mission wasn't over. We still had to get back, and the blizzard showed no signs of letting up. Our supplies were dwindling and our strength was failing. We knew the enemy would be searching for the plane and for us. We had to move fast. We began our perilous journey back, retracing our steps, but the blizzard had erased most of our tracks. We were truly alone, isolated in a vast, hostile wilderness. The cold grew more intense, biting at our skin, threatening to overwhelm us. Doc's frostbite worsened, his fingers turning a ghastly white. Spinner started hallucinating, talking to people who weren't there. Mac, despite his own exhaustion, continued to carry the heaviest load, his face a mask of grim determination. I felt a growing despair, a chilling realization that we might not make it out of this alive. We were a small, vulnerable speck against the overwhelming power of nature and the unseen threat of the enemy. One night, huddled together in a makeshift snow cave, shivering uncontrollably, Mac turned to me, his voice barely a whisper. "Shelby," he rasped, "we can't make it as a group. Doc needs medical attention and Spinner. He's fading fast. You're the strongest. You have to take the intelligence and go. Get it back. It's too important." My heart sank. Leave my friends behind? It was unthinkable, a betrayal of everything we stood for. But I knew deep down he was right. I couldn't carry them, and waiting would only lead to all of our deaths. The intelligence was paramount. It had to get back. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have left your friends to save the mission? Or would you have stayed, risking everything for the chance to keep your brotherhood intact? The decision tore at me, ripping me apart from the inside. But Mac's words echoed in my ears. It's too important. I looked at Doc, his eyes glazed with pain, and Spinner, lost in his delirium. I knew what I had to do. With a heavy heart, I nodded. I'll go, I said, my voice thick with emotion. But I'll come back for you. I promise. Mac squeezed my shoulder, his grip surprisingly strong. We'll wait, he said, a flicker of hope in his eyes. I took the intelligence pouch, slinging my rifle over my shoulder, and began my solitary journey. Leaving them behind was the hardest thing I had ever done. A gut-wrenching decision that would haunt me for the rest of my life. I pushed myself harder than ever before, driven by the urgency of the mission and the promise I had made. The blizzard continued its relentless assault, but I pressed on, a lone figure against the white expanse. I rationed my remaining food, taking only small, infrequent bites, my body running on fumes and sheer willpower. I navigated by the occasional glimpse of the stars, when the clouds parted for a fleeting moment, and by instinct, a primal sense of direction honed by years of training. The cold was a constant torment, a searing pain in my extremities, but I refused to give in. I thought of Mac, Doc, and Spinner huddled in their snow cave waiting, and that thought fueled every painful step. Days bled into a blur of exhaustion and struggle. I encountered enemy patrols, narrowly evading them, my heart pounding in my chest. I fell into a crevasse, miraculously catching myself on a ledge, my fingers numb and bleeding as I pulled myself back up. I battled hypothermia, fighting to stay conscious, to keep moving. There were moments when I wanted to give up, to simply lie down in the snow and let the cold take me. But the images of my friends, and the vital intelligence I carried, spurred me on. I pushed through the pain, through the fear, through the overwhelming sense of loneliness. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I saw it. A distant glow on the horizon. The faint outline of Allied territory. A surge of exhilaration so powerful it almost brought me to my knees washed over me. I was close. I was going to make it. I stumbled into the Allied outpost, a ragged, frost-bitten shadow of my former self, barely able to stand. The soldiers who found me were shocked, their faces a mixture of awe and concern. I handed over the intelligence pouch, my mission finally complete. After receiving urgent medical attention and a much-needed rest, I gathered a rescue team. The blizzard had finally begun to subside, leaving behind a pristine but no less treacherous landscape. We flew back to the location where I had left my friends, my heart pounding with a mixture of hope and dread. Would they still be there? Would they still be alive? As we descended, I spotted it, the makeshift snow cave still partially visible beneath the fresh snow. My breath caught in my throat. We landed and I rushed towards it, my heart in my mouth. Mac was there, huddled with Doc and Spinner, all three alive, weak but alive. The reunion was tearful, emotional. Mac's unwavering hope, Doc's quiet strength, and Spinner's surprising resilience had kept them going. We were all battered, scarred, but we had survived. We had made it back. The intelligence I carried proved to be critical, providing our forces with a decisive advantage in the coming battles. The information helped to turn the tide, saving countless lives and shortening the war. I was lauded as a hero, awarded medals for my courage and determination. But I always felt that the true heroes were Mac, Doc, and Spinner, who had faced their own grim battle in that snow cave and emerged victorious. The experience changed me profoundly. It taught me the true meaning of courage, of sacrifice, and of the unbreakable bonds of brotherhood. It showed me that even in the darkest, most desperate moments, the human spirit can endure, can find the strength to keep fighting, to keep hoping. I never sought glory, and I never will. I only sought to do my duty, to honor the trust placed in me and to bring my friends home. And in the end, that's exactly what I did. And so, my friends, that's my story. It's a tale of impossible odds, of unwavering courage, and of the choices we make when faced with unimaginable challenges. It taught me that sometimes, the greatest acts of bravery are not those that seek the spotlight, but those that are born out of a silent promise, a desperate hope, and an unshakable belief in something greater than oneself. What are your thoughts on this whole mess? Were my choices the right ones, or would you have done things differently? I'm truly curious to hear your perspectives. Like this video if you were on my side, if you understand the weight of the choices I had to make. And please subscribe for more stories like this. Stories of ordinary people facing extraordinary circumstances. Stories of courage that never seeks glory. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I want to hear every single one of them. I'll see you all in the next story.